see if there's someone joining us for the first time and give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves. So this is the first time you've been here. Go ahead and stand.
Sorry, allergies are getting better with voice here. Dan Lucchese, I'm a real estate broker with Williams, and also doing some other business.
Hi everyone, Elena Romans, Director of Strategy.
Hi, I'm Dan Hurdle. I just moved here permanently with my wife for forever, and figuring out what I'm going to do here professionally. So.
I just want to give Brett a chance to talk a little bit about his business. He's our coffee sponsor today, so big thanks to Brett and Desert Sun for coffee campaigns.
Yeah, so we need the coffee. I had to wear my boots to get an extra inch height. Brett Rosenbach, I own Rocky Mountain Home and Ranch. My brokerage is actually R1 Colorado, R1 New Mexico. Privately held company. Been in Durango about 6 years. We're actually remodeling the Old Dibs restaurant. It's going to be super sweet when we get it going. Really, I just want to say thanks to the Alliance, all the investors, board members. It was a year and a half ago, Mitch, wherever Mitch is, said, if you're doing anything for your business, you need to show up to every single meeting at the Alliance. And about a week later, Jack said the same thing. Also plug the chamber in there. So, so I haven't missed a meeting since. Just want to say thanks to everybody. And it's been a great organization. See a lot of faces I know and a lot of new faces. So love to meet everyone's stories.
Thank you. A couple of quick updates from the board, and then I'll start handing things off to others. So this month, we started down a path to really revisit our 3-year strategic plan as an organization. Mike did a nice job of walking us back the last 3 years that encompassed the plan that we're kind of currently working under. It was low PTSD that took us back to right before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, where we are today. But it was really good to see how Mike has led the organization and some of the decisions the board made along the way to get us to where we are with a really significant focus on housing investments and also workforce development. We also took a look at kind of the internal and external strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, just to kind of give the staff a current lay of the land for the organization. And over coming meetings, we'll work on refining that plan, maybe involving some of the membership as well between now and the end of the year when we have that refresh and brought back to all of them. So that process is underway. Today, you're going to hear a little bit from Fort Lewis College about the Opportunity Now grant that was awarded to the Economic Alliance, and Mike will give some updates on the Catalyst Fund. So a lot of the things that over the last couple of years have really been driving the organization are coming to fruition. And today is pretty exciting to be able to share more of those things. So before we do that, Commissioner Salk is going to actually start us off with a county update. He's got some commitments this morning, so he's going to start us off.
Thank you, Alliance and Mike, for accommodating my schedule. A couple of updates here is our community development director, Lynn Hyde, has accepted the employment for the planning director for La Plata County, and that she will start at the end of July, which is great news. She was the development review planner at the city of Bozeman. She already currently lives here, so she'll be able to transition pretty quickly here at the end of July. County Road 240 bridge project, there will be here. It's going to be done today, this afternoon is what I hear on our report. That is 4 days ahead of schedule, which is great news because County Road 240 being closed down, quite a bit of people come to Durango from that direction. Kevin Hall took the job as deputy county manager. La Plata County Health Director finalists, one has withdrawn. And so today we'll make the decision on our next steps. Tiffany at San Juan Basin Public Health is the interim manager for right now, for the health director right now, but we'll see about what our next steps are after today's meeting. The other item too as well, broadband. So fiber conduit is being installed currently right now at our old main post office here on Main Street near our county administration building, which is great news. The upgrade for that CNL should be finished in 5 weeks, which the ISPs will be able to co-locate their networking equipment to help expand better broadband in LaPorte County in the region. NTIA, the $66 million ask, still waiting. I feel like every month when I do get to talk to you all, I tell you it's this month. Well, hopefully, maybe this month. We haven't heard a no, so that's good news. Currently working on a bill. I just want to let you all know if you have any interest in this, which is a CDOT right-of-way access bill to allow broadband development in the state of Colorado. There's a lot of issues and concerns with accessing and being able to install fiber in the CDOT right-of-way to be able to make it fair, not price gouging our local governments, schools, ISPs. So with that bill, that would do would be waiving yearly annual fees, which can be very cost prohibitive. That's all I have right here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Before Mike presents, we've got Tom and just Madeline as well to talk about the opportunity now granted partnership in college.
It's great. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Good. All right. Well, we're doing great. So I want to come and good to see some familiar faces here. 2 years ago, when the state was dripping with COVID relief funds, there was $85 million left in a pot, and all the higher ed organizations started advocating. We're very good at advocating, figured that out, but to essentially create innovation pockets in higher education. And the governor and some legislators said, no, this is broader than just higher ed. We want to make a competitive grant program to fund workforce development and regional talent across the region. And we love, Fort Lewis loves competition. We love the idea of grant competition. So we lobbied for that bill. And then the program came out in what was known as Opportunity Now. And that was 3 programs across the state of Colorado, a program planning grant, a seed grant, or a scale grant to fund the workforce needed to develop the Colorado's economy. And so luckily, we have an incredible partner here. And those of you who are on the board, those of your supporters, just want to call out Mike French and the Alliance. We started to think through what really does higher education need? What's the way for a school like Fort Lewis to take the assets that it has and really partner with the community more broadly to develop the talent that we need in our region. And so with Mike's great leadership, we were able to convene some roundtables, get input from people, what employers were looking for in terms of skills. And this led us to this really strong proposal that we put together. So LaPorte Economic Alliance is the lead and Fort Lewis is sort of the back office. Ended up winning one of the $1.25 million in the seed competition for Opportunity Now. So we're super psyched. That's when you're supposed to applaud. And you don't have to applause again, that's fine. So we're really quite excited about it for a couple of reasons. One, Fort Lewis's strategic plan is very clear. Like we are the community. We're only as strong as the community that surrounds us. It's just awesome being in this room, looking around at all the people who really make us better. And we wouldn't be where we are without a host of community partners who do this work. But we also know higher ed needs to reform. I mean, higher ed is really in its classic form been around since the Germanic age and largely looks kind of similar. I wear that funny jaunty hat on graduation. That comes from like the 1400s. So higher ed really needs to reform to think very clearly about what around workforce development we need to propel our community forward. We have some great faculty. So what the grant will do is in partnership with the Southwest Colorado Collaborative and our great collaborator, Karen Chesser back there with the Southern Youth Mountain and with the Alliance is develop workforce certificates that are both taught by industry leaders that might come in from the outside. Maybe some of you might teach these, as well as our faculty to give people the training, to give working adults the training they need to advance their career, and also kind of help push higher ed internally and our own students to get access to this. So we're super excited. Stay tuned for more. We'll be kicking this off. Is it August or August? Yeah, it's like a month from now, basically. And Elena Romans, who's project will be like wave your hand again. It will be very involved for us along with Mike's staff. So just want to say thanks to the Alliance. We definitely all collectively are better together. This was a great example of collaboration. And some companies in the room had sent their HR people to give us input on what we wanted, made a really, really strong proposal. So we're out even trying to raise more money for this thing. We just talked to Zoma. I didn't talk to you. Zoma Labs was on the phone with us yesterday. They're trying to come in and maybe do some stuff. So we'll just kind of keep working and do good stuff for the region. But Mike, you want to tag team it all and see if there's anything else you want to add?
I've got a slide.
Mike has a slide. See the slide. This is awesome. Anyway, great to see everybody again. We unfortunately have a leadership retreat up on campus, but Mike, thanks a lot, and appreciate everybody's time.
Thanks for making the time this morning. Great partnership with Fort Lewis College and local community. I know many folks were on some of the pre-planning calls to help solicit feedback and input that. So Mike will have a few more details and then we'll on with some other updates. Thank you. Nice.
I do want to thank Elena specifically, who really led the charge on the grant application and helping round out the input groups. So we actually reached out to 7 different industries, and these are the industries that we'll focus these micro certifications on. And Elena, thank you so much. There's no way we could have gotten across the line without your help and you running point on the project. So we'll hire a project manager specifically for this grant. It's a 3-year grant, totaling $1.25 million. And Tom, we welcome any additional funds. So to continue to go out and lobby, because that allows us to put more certifications out. So I think our objective in year 1 is to identify 2 micro certifications. By the way, micro certifications are not for credit, or these are certifications for industry, led by industry. So in the roundtables, what we heard from industry is the skills gap that's lacking for either onboarding or upward mobility is leadership. And that includes conflict resolution, change management. It might be digital literacy, fiscal literacy. So we'll focus on those common threads that we'll get input on from the 7 industries. So we're really excited to launch that program. As part of that, the summit, we're going to go ahead and pivot the summit a little bit this year. We historically have made the summit a leadership development or a more leadership oriented summit. We'll continue to keep that focus, but we're going to go ahead and launch this program and bring some subject matter experts and some consultants to the table and start to formulate what those micro certifications look like. So we're calling the summit this year Opportunity Now. We're going to be opportunistic about it and kind of use that theme and carry it forward and have a long tail and make it programmatic. Right, so it's not just a one and done. We're actually going to kind of promote it for the programming and the micro certification. So, Elena, huge thank you. In terms of the speakers, we have 4 commitments. Really excited about these 4 keynote speakers that are coming in. As I had alluded to in our last meeting, Sally Thornton is back. She was super dynamic. Everybody loved her last year. We had multiple requests for her contact information. We actually had a couple of entities engage her post-summit, and her and I continued our dialogue, and they said, hey, Sally, if we were to invite you back, do you have enough content? She said, oh yeah, things have changed so much in a year. Bring me back. I love Durango. Let's do it. And so we were really excited to bring her back. Chris Shermba, who does a lot of work with YPod, and especially YPod Colorado. He's out of New York City. He just published this book, Gratitude Through Hard Times. He will be here. Really excited to have him here. Michael O'Brien, he is the founder of a company called Blueprint Toolkit. It's all around leadership development, more on the academic side or the programmatic side. And I think he'll be really interesting to plug into Opportunity Now. So we're bringing him in. And then a gentleman named Andy Elwood. And Andy's also happens to be from NYC. Maybe him and Chris would be on the same plane. Andy is an executive coach. He worked for Warren Buffett, was an entrepreneur, then went on to work for Buffett and has done a ton of M&A. And he tells a really interesting story And his focus is on story of origin and community. And I'm really excited to hear from him. So super stoked. You guys will start to get some marketing material from us in the next few weeks. And we will probably have tickets available. My guess is the second week of July. So the Catalyst Fund, as Joe alluded to, the first round is out. We awarded 4 projects, workforce housing oriented projects, to the total of a little bit under $200,000. Rock Creek and Ignacio was awarded some money. Durango Crossing, which is up by Bread, Rivergate 3, which is in front of Ash, and Pine River Commons, which is in Bayfield. So I'm really excited because it's representing a really good demographic region, right? Bayfield, Ignacio, and Durango are all in here. Round 2 will be announced in July in terms of time frame. We'll probably open it up in late July, and we think we have enough funding to get even into a round 3. That'll be a TBD. It might be late 2023, but we're also looking for additional funding. Right now we have north of $650,000 to put into this. I think we're going to get an infusion of additional monies, and that will carry us into 2024. So hopefully we go into round 4 and 5, and that'll be really exciting. I'm just going to go through some quick economic stats. Unemployment is at an all-time low, and you guys are feeling this because it's a really, really, really tight labor market. It's really difficult to find employees right now, and it doesn't matter what level. But we're at 2.2% in La Plata County, which is the lowest we've been at in 4 years. We haven't seen these kind of numbers since pre-pandemic, maybe 2019. But I do think that we're going to see an uptick in unemployment, and it'll eventually trickle down. Nationally, the first-time unemployment claims were up over 29% year over year this last week. And so that's telling me that some of the layoffs are hitting, fear of recession, those kind of things. And it has to trickle down into the state and eventually maybe our regional economy. But our regional economy is super strong right now. All indications, the only thing that's kind of holding us back is cost of money. And this is both for like developers, people trying to take out business loans, but also people that are trying to either refinance or get a mortgage. And you know, there's still pent up demand, but I think people are sitting on their property because they probably have a 4, 4.5, or even lower mortgage rate. And it's really difficult to go into something that's closer to 7. Right. And so with that, what we're seeing in terms of housing is a really slowdown in terms of activity. In the county, it's over 40%, both year over year, as well as same time last year for the month of May. But if you look at the pricing, the median and average pricing is holding. So the laws of supply and demand are not necessarily working really well right now. Pricing is holding, activity is down, inventory is creeping up. So it's sort of bucks the, but there's more to it than that, right? Same thing with Durango proper. This decrease is not as substantial as Plata County. The volume is a little bit less also, but we're looking at decreases in the 30s. And then Bayfield, same story, a little bit less of a decrease in terms of activity, but pricing is holding in Bayfield. So pricing is holding everywhere across the board. I have one more thing to say, and then we'll turn it over to Joe again. The strategic plan. Yeah, this is really interesting to go back 3 years and think about where the Alliance was in early 2020 when I came on board in February. Of course, the pandemic and the shutdown happened in March. But going back, we actually pulled up 39 board meetings over the last 3.5 years and looked at these decks, looked at membership meeting decks, and it was interesting going back that far because so much has changed and the mood has changed, and we've gone through multiple phases of I think the economy. You know, we had a pre-pandemic economy, we had a pandemic economy, and now we have a post-pandemic economy. They've all been very different. But the one thing that has held true is our North Star, right? And that is continue to work on workforce housing. We cannot decouple workforce housing from economic development, especially in this area. They go hand in hand. And then workforce development. And just so excited about what we're able to do and how we're able to partner with multiple organizations. I mean, granted, FLC and the Alliance sort of get to take center stage on this grant opportunity, but we're going to pull in so many partners to make this work. And then the third is continue to focus on business capacity and growth. That's really making sure that light industrial, things like Proposta really happen. And then the companies that are here, how do we care and feed them and make sure that they don't look elsewhere. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Joe. Thank you very much.
Just a great highlight of the collaboration that occurs both public, private, and the education side. Tony, as we kick off summer, it's great to have you back to give us some updates on how things are going with travel. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Bicari, the Aviation Director at Durango and Plata County Airport, here to give you a short update on airport operations year to date. So I'll start off with a little bit of a traffic recap. You can see year-over-year numbers, pre-pandemic in the blue, and then 21 through current. Here in 2023, we started the year off very strong in terms of traffic demand. We're up about 12% year to date over our 22 figures and a similar figure over the 2019 baseline. So overall traffic has been relatively strong so far this year. We're on track for a record-breaking year. I don't think we'll quite hit that. You can see the peaking in the gray line there in 2021 that we experienced in the third quarter that was really unprecedented, very strange post-pandemic recovery trends. That's when we had Frontier and Delta in the market and that sudden surge that we saw, particularly on the inbound tourism side. Over the last 2 years, we've seen that inbound tourism side demand cool a little bit. Actually, so far here in 2023, the predominant driver that we've seen has been local traffic. Really, we're seeing the local traffic push pretty strongly. Using some of our data as baseline metrics, it looks like inbound visitation through the first quarter and early spring here in Durango is actually flat to maybe even down a little bit from 22, whereas local demand is up closer to 20%. We're seeing record demands in our parking lots, very strong utilization and extended trip duration are some of the key characteristics that we've seen so far this year. Really, that kind of hits on some of the same trends we've seen nationally, where domestic leisure trip and travel continues to really lead the way in terms of pandemic recovery nationwide and in our market. Business traffic has been a laggard throughout the pandemic recovery. We are starting to see that turn. It saw some recovery in 22, see some early signs this year, but still not seeing that kind of really strong pre-pandemic presence. And then international traffic was obviously deeply suppressed with the pandemic. We've seen some really resilient recovery in 22 and early 23. Actually, calendar year end 22 numbers showed that international travel out of Durango was actually up over pre-pandemic. So we've seen recovery in almost every sector, really save the business travel. It is the one area where we're still seeing a lag a little bit. In terms of the airline route network, pretty similar to what we've seen in the past. United continues to serve the Denver market, and we're excited we're able to reestablish Houston on our route map starting this summer. That'll be weekend service starting in late June on the 24th. It'll run Saturday and Sundays through the duration of the summer up through Labor Day weekend, effectively. We had some seasonal Houston service in the market pre-pandemic that went away during the pandemic, along with pretty much all seasonal service across the country. And we've been fighting over the last 2 years to get that reestablished. Houston is our fourth biggest origin and destination market and our largest that's not served by a nonstop route. We've known that it's been the case for a number of years, and hence our focus on really establishing that Houston connection and connectivity through the United network. So thankfully this year we're able to really push on that and get it reestablished. So success or lack thereof with that route this summer will really go a long way in terms of our ability to springboard off of that and hopefully leverage that opportunity into some future growth on that route. When it was last in the market in 2019, we saw some pretty strong success out of Houston. We saw strong demand to the extent that time of summer seasonal, much like it is this year, but time United pushed that and ended up making it continual through the fall and actually engaged it through the winter, which is the first time that we'd ever seen that with some spot service that rolled into early 2020. And then obviously the pandemic hit and that quickly and abruptly disappeared. So we never really were able to do a true test market of that winter seasonal Houston opportunity due to the pandemic disruption there. So just getting it back on the map is big at this time, fighting for seasonal service and really fighting for any seasonal service or not just season, any service in general, continues to be challenging, primarily driven by constraints on the airline system, really the pilot shortage that we're experiencing on a nationwide level, particularly constraining regional carriers that serve smaller routes and destinations like Durango. Regional pilot supply has dissipated dramatically as we've seen a lot of pull into the mainline network carriers. And so consequently, fighting for regional service is tougher than it's ever been. That's really what led to some of the suppression we saw last summer when you saw those summer 22 numbers, some of the lowest we've had in a decade, not really driven by lack of demand, but rather lack of supply on that airline supply side. We're starting to see a little bit of stability in that front, but still definitely a challenge. So one of the ways that airlines are adding this is updating, which is quite simply using larger aircraft. And we've seen that play out in our market. United initiated Airbus A319 traffic on one of their 5 daily frequencies in late March. So that's running as their early morning departure and late evening arrival on a daily basis. So that's an aircraft that's almost twice as large as our typical regional flight that we've seen fly into the market. And then just 2 weekends ago, American started their first mainline service also on an Airbus A319, flying only Saturdays to start with. But seeing the upgauging in the market is really a good reflection. That's the direction the industry is going. As I said, we're seeing more and more constraints on that regional airline side. The growth is really happening on mainline carriers. So the ability of a market to serve mainline traffic is really critical for maintaining air service first and foremost, and then ultimately expanding it. So that, of course, trickles into a few things. A lot of that, part of it, of course, is demand, making sure that we can put create the demand and facilitate the demand to fill that up gauge of seats, the increase in seat capacity overall. And the other piece, of course, is facilities, making sure that our facilities can handle these peakings, which we'll talk about as it relates to the program. So a quick overview on some projects here in 2023. Won't go through all of these. I'll hit on the terminal expansion here shortly. That's really kind of the full focus for us here in 2023. We also have a major wastewater system project to upgrade the wastewater treatment facility at the airport. We're acquiring a new aircraft rescue firefighting vehicle, initiating design on the first phase of our landside development. For those that are familiar with the airport, perhaps have grown fond of the unpaved parking lot for our overflow. We plans to design the paving of that lot. It's scheduled for construction next spring. So bringing a higher level of service to the airport and on the land side, as well as the focus on the terminal facilities. You can see some other projects there. So talking about the terminal program, this breaks down into really 2 near-term phases for us. I've talked about it before, called them phase 1A and phase 1B. Phase 1A, as you see on the screen here, is a targeted near-term project. We broke ground on this project in April. So we're about a little over a month in terms of development here. What this is focused on is an expansion of the existing terminal facility to the north of the right on this diagram into that purple shaded area. So we're adding 1 airline boarding gate and hold room, new post-screening concessions, all new men's and women's check rooms. And then upon the completion of that, we'll go back into the facility in the orange there and do some renovation to replace the existing outdated and undersized restrooms with family restrooms, private nursing room, custodial storage, et cetera. It's really kind of a targeted near-term project that's really, of course, focused on gate capacity. It's really the first piece of the puzzle for us moving forward. And what it does is it launches us into, take that back. Here's a couple of renderings first, just to kind of give you a sense of the direction of the building. Moving forward to exterior, interior, and restroom upgrades. And that really leads into really the fulcrum of the project here. So phase 1B of our terminal project is really the sort of penultimate phase and trying to push us to a direction that we want to ultimately go. So this is a pretty sea change move for the terminal facility. So just for orientation here, you can kind of get a sense of the blue area is proposed as new construction in phase 1B. So that would be new added square footage to the building. The darker salmon color there is sort of heavier interior renovation of existing spaces. And then the lighter beige colors, lighter renovations, primarily finish changes. So kind of there's a lot going on here, but really the fulcrum and the shift here is centered around the TSA screening checkpoint. So the screening checkpoint currently is sort of buried in the center of the building down a central corridor where essentially all the services of the airport are funneled. And it really puts some constraints on us in terms of growth and expansion opportunities. So the idea of the project is to relocate that checkpoint to the right side of the page here, where it can be set up in a linear fashion, right sized. It was really hammered in when it was put in the early 2000s, post 9/11, as it was in all airports. So right sizing that operation, building out all new baggage claim facilities, adding another gate on the post screening side. Another upside of moving the TSA screening checkpoint is we're able to reclaim the boarding gate where it currently sits. So right now, there used to be a boarding gate in this location here. It's about 90% TSA today as it's creeped and grown over the years. So by moving it, we're able to reclaim that gate and add that square footage as usable post-screening gate frontage for us as well. And we'll change the land side platform a little bit in terms of bringing concessions and restrooms to the forefront, really change the flow of the building. What this does, it really sets us up, obviously, in terms of future infrastructure for the airport. We're really gate constrained today. At the airport, we're more or less maxed out. When Frontier and Delta were in the market, we had to hammer them in. We cut a hole in the wall for Frontier, quite literally. In terms of their boarding gate operations, it was never right size, just not an optimal platform for them. As we continue to look at growth, I talked about upgauging earlier, the ability to serve mainline aircraft. Our post-screening gates were just not situated in a way to be able to handle that kind of infrastructure moving forward in the surge of traffic. So this is going to put us into a 4-gate position. These are all sized for mainline activity and put us in a position to be able to accommodate today's traffic and be able to put ourselves in play in future growth opportunities as we see out there where we really don't have today. And one of the big things that can't really talk enough about is what this allows us to do is to get out of the tent structure, which is the bottom left-hand corner there. The tent was built as a temporary facility to add gate space in 2013. That temporary facility is a decade old at this point. Time flies, right? And that's how we've seen it. Every temporary facility is going to be a permanent facility in some form or fashion. And so realistically, the airport needs to have a strategy to grow, to be able to basically take itself away from relying on a temporary facility. It's holding up well, it's still a great space for us, but we can't rely on it in perpetuity. So we talk about growth. Some people say like, oh my gosh, the airport's growing, maybe this is too aggressive. We really look at some of the post-screening square footage aspects, so everything after the TSA checkpoint. A lot of this project, quite frankly, is just to replace in kind the square footage that we're eventually going to have to lose and decommission through the tent moving forward. So it's one of the things I like to point out is that we need to be positioned to have that permanent infrastructure in place there. So just a quick overview on funding for the terminal project. So first and foremost, we want to remind everyone the airport is an enterprise fund of the city of Durango. There's no local tax dollars utilized for the airport for capital or operating expenses. The terminal is going to be the same way. The intention of this program is to be an incremental development strategy that allows us to bite off phases in a way that we can self-fund through airport revenue streams. That's something we've heard loud and clear through past initiatives with the airport, looking at other development opportunities. So we're carrying forward on that. So you can see the breakout, there's a lot going on the bottom there, the different phases of construction and design overall. But as you can see, it's a $36 million program overall, and about 2/3 of that is projected as grant funded through available funding through the FAA and CDOT grant match opportunities. And about 1/3 of that is local airport funding. A portion of that we're able to cash fund through the operating surpluses available at the airport. And then we're looking at about an $8 million finance issuance, likely in the second quarter of 2024 next year, about this time, to be able to facilitate the construction of phase 1B. So again, very happy that we're able to present this in a way that we can do this through airport funding streams and not need to rely on any kind of a taxpayer ask within the community. So there's a lot of pressures and demands on those right now. And lastly, just a quick overview of timeline, focusing primarily on phase 1B, the larger phase. So you can see kind of on the bottom, so phase 1A that we're under construction right now is expected to wrap up very late this year or early in 2024. And we're currently working on final design for phase 1B. That'll be wrapped up roughly by year end. And our goal is to initiate construction likely summer of 2024. So a little over a year from now is when we kick that off. So there might be a slight gap between the end of phase 1A construction and the initiation of phase 1B. They could end up blending together quite nicely on that front. So long story short, the airport terminal facilities are going to be under some form or fashion of construction likely for about the next 3 years as we move through these design phases. And that's all I have today.
Exciting, lots of good things happening in the community. Tony, thanks for both talking about near term, what we're experiencing through the airport, and also what's coming for the next few years. Next, we've got Carrie Woodson, our county assessor. Carrie this morning. All right, we're going to invite Carrie back in the future. So we'll move to some of our public updates. First is Mayor Turkey.
Hello. Just a few things going on in Bayfield. Hasn't made the paper quite yet, but we are going through a massive rebranding with our marshal's office. Our marshal's office will now be the Bayfield Police Department. We just hired a new chief about a month ago. He hails from Gulf Shores, Alabama, and he's bringing in some really good, exciting new tools and new energy. It's amazing to this day how many people pull me aside and ask me if a marshal can actually arrest people. They're cops. They're cops. It's just the name of God. They're not junior deputies. They're legitimate police officers. So I think it's a good time as our town grows and as we see the changes in the Bayfield. So we'll look for that process going forward. There was a great article in the Durango Herald about our Mustang Crossing subdivision. Phase 1 is a go. So that full build out will be 81 units in there. We're still waiting to hear on our grant funding for our Cinnamon Heights, our affordable housing project, and as well as the East intersection. And just want to invite everybody to our block party this Thursday from 5:30 to 8:30. We'll have a beer garden. We'll have live music. We have 25 plus vendors on Mill Street. So that's always a nice little bump for our community. You're around for any questions?
This is Councilor Buell from the city of Durango.
Hey, hi, good morning. We'll talk about staffing first. We just hired a new code reform administrator with the community development department. Her name is Lily Oswald. She grew up here in Durango, is excited to be back in the area. She's going to update and increase the transparency of the city's land use and building codes, processes, procedures, interdepartmental standards to better reflect Durango and the community's updated goals and priorities. For downtown, the West Slopes Startup Week is taking place August 24th through the 25th in Durango. It's a week-long conference for entrepreneurs, small business owners, makers, techies, and more. There's 40 free educational workshops and networking events, and they're accepting idea submissions right now through June 16th on their website, westslopeStartupWeek.com. With the URA, the 2023 Midtown Peak Grant is open. It's $50,000 of property improvements in the Midtown area. So property owners can make large property improvements there. The link to the grant can be found at durangogov.org/URA. And then finally, housing. On May 19th, the City of Durango and Homes Fund received a notice of award for the next community development block grant to provide mortgage assistance in Southwest Colorado in the amount of almost $1.9 million. The city will be the pass-through agency for those funds. So.
We have a couple of other announcements today. So first is
real quick plug. Thank you for letting me talk about our upcoming aids and issues and. Thank you. So we're going to have our eggs and issues on Thursday morning. It's going to be from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock up at the Colorado room, which is up at Fort Lewis College next to the ballroom. We're going to have an video update from Barbara McLaughlin, and then we're bringing down Rachel Beck, who is with the Colorado Competitive Council, as well as Travis Berry with Political Works. And they're going to give us an update on what took place the last legislative session, what they expect to try and be put forward for next year's legislative session. And then really importantly to me is how you get involved as business owners. There's a lot of times that legislators present something, sounds great on paper, but they might not own a business. They don't realize the impacts to business. I think I saw something just a little bit ago in the Herald that even Governor Polis is vetoing 23 bills. Something like that. So there's a lot of things that he's even seen going, wait a minute, this is not going to be good for Colorado. So if you can make it, I've got some flyers. I'll put them at the back so you can grab one on the way out. Also, quick plug, tomorrow morning in this room, we're going to have get to know the CEO with Carrie Siggins. That's from 8:30 to 9:30 with, she's with Stone Age. And I know she has a book coming out later this fall. And then also we have You're gonna go to the Chamber in Ignacio, Durango Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours from 5 to 7 at the casino. Wrap that up, head on over to Batesville, same night, make just a big Monmouth County loop. So if you guys have any questions, I'll stick around afterwards. Thanks. Welcome, sure.
Last we've got Ellen to talk about a great 4th of July.
I know. Space park.
Hi, I'm Ellen Babers, City of Durango Community Events, and I work within Parks and Rec. And the bigger goal of what we're doing there is looking at the event industry in Durango for the next 5 to 10 years and where it's going and how we can fulfill it from not just one-off nonprofits, some awesome events, but just one at a time nonprofit events to what that industry really can be here. So a lot of that's collaboration, and 4th of July is a really good example of that. I've been working with these organizations, and you know the usual suspects that live there, to take the $60,000 or so that the city invests in 4th of July and really turn it into something that encourages locals to stay and play here. So we've been working with Visit Durango specifically on the marketing. They started in March with a stay and play poster and also a staycation. So they put out 2 different things. One is nationally and one is locally, where you have to be a local to be able to win it. And it's for a group of 4, 2 nights lodging downtown during 4th of July, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 2 days, a $500 shopping spree, all of that bought from local businesses. So the how we are doing this includes touching directly with money or by highlighting through our marketing over 100 businesses in Durango. A little different schedule than what we've had before, 25 events over 4 days. Some of those, the standard favorites, many of you have probably been to the Rotary Breakfast or possibly to the street dance or hopefully to the parade. We've added some of the other things that really highlight that we are still the small town size, which include some really fun eating contests, and Esoterra is going to have a pie baking contest with local chefs judging it, and then a taste plate that you can see who should be the winner. One thing I want to point out is that this year the street dance and the drone show are on the 4th of July. So we'll start that morning with the Rotary Breakfast, everything at Rotary, the breakfast, the Freedom 5K and the Southwest Civic Winds. We'll move to Buckley Park for the Building Home for Heroes, a couple of bands there. Then we'll go to the parade, and we've got a lot of music in the parade this year, so I think it'll be a really good parade. And then to the street dance, 2 bands there, and then the drone show. I've been working very carefully or closely with the creative director for Pixis Drones, and I will just give you a little teaser that I think the drone show will be very, very Durango and very La Plata County. So you can see it. And we figured out the music part so that it doesn't matter if you're in the street dance, you can be up on the hill and see it and still be able to hear the music. So that'll be through an app. This, I won't go through the schedule, but in the back, I've got flyers with the schedule on the back. Please take them. And then that's a staycation. So this staycation that I mentioned earlier, we have over 80,000 entries between the national and the local one. So the impact of what we're doing is not only putting money back in here, but it's also marketing Durango. What I want you to take away from this is you need to go back home and say, hey, we need to stay here for 4th of July. And next year, we need to invite our family and friends to come here. We don't want to leak these, we don't want people to leave and go to Telluride or somewhere else. I've been working with Bayfield, Joseph, Cortez, Farmington, and through these 4 days, you can do something in all of La Plata County and still get to the next event. And so it's real reason to stay and to keep our money here. That's it.
So thanks for working across many private businesses and the communities around the Plata to celebrate the 4th of July. Our next meeting will be after the 4th of July, so we're 11. Enjoy the month that's upcoming. Thanks for being here and being a member after you being. It's not so like it's a lot silly. No.